Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Robert Mays, host of the Athletics Football Show, with his thoughts about the Browns quarterback competition.
I mean, I think that we've seen Joe Flacco play in some version of that offense.
Yeah.
You know, when you go back and you think about the 2023 Browns and what they look like with Joe Flacco compared to what they look like with Deshaun Watson, I do think there's a path for it there. I think the Browns are walking into this hoping that one of the rookies makes it close enough as part of this competition that they can give that guy a shot, right? Like, I think the ideal version for the Browns quarterback room was always going to be something like the 2012 Seahawks looked like, where you bring in a free agent of some kind, you have a third guy in there, and then you draft somebody in the middle rounds and you hope that guy wins the job, because obviously that's going to give you the highest upside over like a multi-year period. So the idea, I think, always was to go into the draft, find a guy in the second or third round, put him in a room with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, have that guy win the job if it was even close. They've complicated that by adding two rookies, neither of whom is probably going to get enough reps to forcibly win the job in the way that they would if there was only one guy. So there's just so many layers of complication here. I think I want to see one of the rookies do it just because I find it much, much more interesting than trying to watch 47-year-old Joe Flacco limp to the finish line with this sporting cast.
Yeah, but Kevin Stefanski and the Browns they don't care what you think is interesting. They're trying to win football games. So I don't think those rookies set foot on the field unless they're lights out or until the Browns season has gone off the rails. A long time Cleveland sports talk host Tony Rizzo and the ESPN Cleveland gang with their takes on the Browns quarterback position.
I want everyone to understand that to get one of those rookies ready for week one, that's, to me, malpractice. I don't see one of those guys. Now, maybe Shedeur lights it up. Maybe Gabriel does. I just think when you have the two veteran guys, let them start the first couple. Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions. Let those guys start those 4 games.
Let's say it's either of the veterans who starts, either Flacco or Pickett. What happens if through 8 games they're 4-4 and they're a game out of the division?
Then you got to let them go.
Okay. Then what if they're 6-6 and then they're in a playoff race?
Got to let them go.
So that's my point. Everybody,
Chris, look at me.
Riz, everybody is under the assumption that that's impossible.
Chris.
I refuse to believe that.
Well, the other thing is, Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff are going to work with these guys every day. They're going to know what they have. Now, could it change once they get in a game? Yeah, but it's not going to change dramatically. If a guy that you pick in the 3rd or 5th round has what it takes, you're going to know from practice that he has what it takes, and he's going to earn game time. Front office type Louis Riddick, and now on ESPN. Talking about the Browns rookie from this class that really intrigues him.
Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Just during the State game just this past year that they played. He's an, you know what he is? He is today's Isaiah Likely. That's what he is. That's what he looks like. Exactly the same. Everyone would take an Isaiah Likely. There's no question about that.
And if he's Isaiah Likely and can do some things in the red zone, then the Browns offense will be a little bit better than everybody is thinking it might be. All right, let's turn our attention to the Guardians. Guardians trying to snap a 10-game losing streak. First game on the road against the Astros. It was Tanner Bybee, Colton Gordon, the starting pitching, and Jose Ramirez up in the 5th inning. A couple of men on, already a 1-0 lead, and Ramirez, a deep shot, 3-run homer to make it 4-0 Guardians. In the bottom of the 5th, though, the Astros come right back. Taylor Trammell, a 3-run blast to make it 4-3. Still in the bottom of the 5th, Isaac Paredes. Yeah, that one's going to hit the chicken on the foul pole. Another solo home run. 4-4 is the score. 6th inning, Guardians at it again. Brian Rocchio down the left field line, and that is big trouble. A 2-run double to give the Guardians a 6-4 lead. Bottom of the 6th inning, Astros come back. Victor Carantini, and that one's not coming back. That is just clobbered to right field. Solo home run makes it 6-5. Still 6-5 in the 9th inning. David Fry golfs one out into left center. And that one is going to find the seats there. Gets a home run by a couple of feet. 7-5 is the score, and the Guardians snap the 10-game losing streak with a 7-5 win over the Astros.
It's funny, every team goes through stretches. You're going to go through this, but 10 days is a long time. This group never wavered, never stopped working. We know it's not over. We got to continue to get better. We got to continue to work. But one thing I'm super proud of is throughout those 10 days, this group never once lost its confidence. And it's a testament to the players and the coaches in this room.
As a prize, the Guardians get to face Hunter Brown and his 1.82 ERA in Houston tonight. Joey Cantillo gets the start for the Guardians. Alonzo Ball, that's the guy the Cavs traded for. He talked a little bit about his health. He had both knee and wrist injuries the last couple of years, as well as how he fits into this Cavs system.
I would say the way just my knee held up, after the games. I didn't really know what to expect, but, when I first got back versus Minnesota in that preseason game, I was kind of surprised how good I was moving around, and then I felt like it just got better as the year went on. Unfortunately, I had to deal with my wrist, but as far as my knee was concerned, it was pretty good.
You mentioned this team fitting your play style. In what way specifically?
I just think that, Don is obviously, one of the best players we have in the league, and then they have two bigs that are mobile that can, set pick and rolls and get to the rim like that. And then I feel like we can do some switching on defense. So I think we can, do a lot of different things on both sides of the ball, and I think to have the option to be able to do those things is great.
ESPN's national NBA analyst Brian Windhorst talking about the back and forth between LeBron James and the Lakers front office. Things are not going well, and there's some national belief that the Cavs could be on the outside, kind of waiting to see what happens. Here's Windhorst on the Lakers and LeBron.
LeBron absolutely knows that he will cause a wave with these social media things. So on one hand, he is just coming home for the holiday. He is just doing something that he has done numerous times in the past. On the other hand, by doing what he's doing, he is absolutely poking the bear and, being passive aggressive. And by the way, the Lakers are being passive aggressive back at LeBron. All right. They did not announce his option pickup. So they're both acting in the same way. Now, how is this going to get resolved? And my answer to you, in full honesty, is I don't know. He elected to opt into that contract to make $53 million. When he did that, he limited his options way down, and he limited the Lakers' options way down. So if he truly badly didn't want to be a Laker, he doesn't pick up that option.
Again, it'll play out, and we'll see. Most likely he goes back to the Lakers. If not, Cavs might be a destination where LeBron decides he'd like to be, and if the price is right, I'm sure the Cavs would welcome him. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Browns are up first. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We begin by talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head right to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, on paper, I'm not seeing any glaring weaknesses roster-wise on this team, provided we get receiving production from the RB and tight end rooms in support of the passing game. Heck, the running game may be very dominant this year. The quarterback room has to be better than last year. With a consistent time of possession winning offense, the defense should excel as well. Our kicker has to top last year's effort, or lack thereof. Is this team being underestimated? I guess it's not a bad place to be under the radar and all. I know it's way too early, but playoffs are not out of the question. 10-7, anybody? Let's go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, again, the problem isn't necessarily the talent. If the young guys live up to the talent, I think the reason some of the national people are questioning it, age on the offensive line, youth with running back, but I think this defense can be dominant.
A year ago, most everybody was very optimistic coming off 11-6 playoffs, thought you could even take another step. The big key was quarterback play, and I harped on it the whole offseason that if Deshaun Watson would just be adequate or a little above average, the team could get to the playoffs again. But if he got to, even a better than that, they could go deep in the playoffs. Well, we all know he had a historic bad 1-6 start. His numbers were terrible, and the season was buried before anybody knew what really happened. And so I feel like that team last year, 11-6, might have oversold it, but I don't think they're as bad as the 3-14 roster was. I think after they were 1-6 and the quarterback situation, pretty much, I think everybody knew the season was over. I don't think they would deny this, but I don't think they played to win the last several games, because you can't tell me, as bad as Jameis Winston was with turnovers, they didn't move the ball and have a better chance than they did with DTR or even Bailey Zappi. So with that said, I don't think they're as bad as a 3-win team, maybe as good as an 11-win team, somewhere in the middle. I'll give you maybe my forecast a little later, but as far as, I think it just comes down a lot to quarterback play. You talked about the defense. I think the defense was exposed in a couple areas last year. The biggest area was takeaways. They just didn't take the ball away at all, whether that's the ball bouncing the wrong way or being on the field or whatever. But I do think that they felt the quickest way to be relevant again was to get the defense back in the top 10, maybe even top 5. They were number 1 when they were 11-6. I don't think they have to be number 1, but if you can get in the top 10, and a lot of that, they address Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger. Those two are their top 2 picks. Both are going to probably be starters. And that tells you they feel like up the middle there is maybe the quickest way to be relevant, because we all know the offense was the worst aspect of the team. 15 points a game, dead last in the NFL. You address your top 2 picks on defense, that's telling me they think they can shore that up, and then as they develop on the offensive side. So I do think the defense can keep them in games, and then the offense is a work in progress. You see what they want to do, run the ball, shorten the game, and hopefully the defense can carry them.
To your point, last year, 4 interceptions all year long for the entire team. That's down from 18 the year before when they were the top-ranked defense. Is that just a factor of poor safety play? How do you go from 18, which was tied for 3rd, to 4th, which was dead last in the NFL?
Well, not only interceptions, but fumbles and just takeaways. I mean, they had 12. Total. They just didn't take the ball away. I know they preach it, but some of it is just, just the way the ball bounces. You get your hand on the ball and you don't catch it, or get your hand in the ball, hits the ground, you don't recover it. But I do think that there's a lot that goes into play. That team last year, I didn't really ever see them practice a lot, tackling. And I know a lot of NFL teams don't do it, but I just think they have to get on the field, not be on the field as much. When the offense turns the ball over 34 times like it did, that puts the defense on the field 34 more times than they need to be. They couldn't get off the field on 3rd down last year like they could in 2023, and the turnovers, as you brought up. But I do think the interceptions, the secondary had 3 out of the 4. Denzel Ward had 2, and Newsome had 1. That's it. none by the safeties. So your secondary's got to play better and create turnovers. And so I do think that it's a combination of everything, but I do think that went a long way into the defense dropping from number 1 to number 19 was they didn't take the ball away.
I know you wrote an article, defensive end, kind of an analysis of it. Who do you think the Browns pair with Myles Garrett?
Well, I think if we were to say right today, I'd say it's Isaiah McGuire, former 4th-round pick out of Missouri. He has graded out pretty well, and they're pretty high on him. And they feel like he took a big leap last year when Alex Wright got injured, and that was why they were comfortable to trade Zadarius Smith. He got to play pretty much the second half of the season. I think Alex Wright was in that position until he got hurt last year. And so I think McGuire and Wright are two guys that they are counting on, one of them to rise up and take the position. But if I was to guess right today, I would say McGuire has the edge. I know that they like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. That's one of the reasons they let Okoronkwo go, partly because of the salary, but they feel like he was misused or miscast in the 3-4 in Tampa Bay, former 1st-round pick. Andrew Berry liked him coming out of the draft. He's going to be a pure pass rusher in the 4-3, and they think he can be in the situation, to rush the passer. He could be in the mix as well, but I do think right now I would guess Isaiah McGuire would be the starter come opening day. They like to keep guys fresh and will do a lot of rotation, but I think those are the 3 guys at the top of the heap. But I would say McGuire would probably get the first turn if I was to put the odds on it.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break, talk a little bit about the Browns offense. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. There's some talk that the Commanders might be trading veteran wide receiver Terry McLaurin. Final year of his contract, not happy. Doesn't look like the Commanders want to give him what he wants, those kind of things. Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot, talking about if Andrew Berry might be making a call to the Commanders about Terry McLaurin.
The Browns will always check into anything like that. They will always do that, but I don't get the sense that they're clamoring for a big, high-priced receiver this season. I think if they're going to do something like that, it's going to be next season when they also add potentially their quarterback of the future. I think this year they're probably not going to break the bank on somebody like that. But, of course, when a Terry McLaurin comes along, you have to at least consider it. You have to at least look into it, weigh the pros and cons, and determine what that might look like over the next, 4 years or something like that. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't get the sense right now that they're looking to add a big high-priced receiver.
Fred, you look at the wide receiving corner, and we've talked about it. You've got Jerry Jeudy and an awful lot of questions. If Deontay Johnson plays and can keep his head and stays motivated, that could be an answer. The question is, how much is it going to cost you to get McLaurin, and how much is it going to cost you to sign McLaurin?
Yeah, I mean, that's in the wheelhouse of Andrew Berry. That's one of the things I would almost argue that he's been best at in acquiring players, not so much maybe in the draft, at least early years, especially wide receivers, nor even in free agency. But in trades, he's been good. Amari Cooper, you were willing to just pay him. And same thing, they acquired Jerry Jeudy the same way. Elijah Moore, not so much. He didn't really live up to what they wanted. But as far as you can identify talent that's already there, they've already been there, done that, and that's what it was with like Amari Cooper. It was just the Cowboys were moving on from him, and so you're able to get him for fifth, sixth round draft pick, and just be able to, afford to take on the salary. So the same way with a McLaurin, if you feel long term he could be, an answer for you, and it's just giving up, lower draft picks and then reworking the deal, I would think that would be what I would be expecting Andrew Berry to do, is look around the league and find teams that are guys like that in the last year of their deal that teams are going to move away from, and you can get them for very little, low round draft picks. You just got to be willing to restructure or take on the contract. The other way would be teams that are deep at receiver that you might be able to get, next to nothing. Teams like the Texans or the Packers that have a surplus of young receivers. So McLaurin would be, just depends again on their philosophy. I think they want to get a good look at Cedric Tillman, Jamari Thrash, some of the young guys that they've drafted. But I feel I said going into the season, I wrote several offseason that I thought wide receiver was like the third priority, and they didn't address it at all. They didn't sign a free agent. They didn't draft a wide receiver. The first move was bringing in Deontay Johnson after the draft, and he's kind of a long shot at this point. You can't tell me you're counting on him to be a Pro Bowl type receiver given what he did last year. And so if you're not sold on that, you got to be looking around and bringing in reinforcements, because I just don't think you can, if you're planning on trying to go for it and win this year, I don't think you can totally count on all those young guys as well as Deontay Johnson to all step up at the same time. So I would expect them to be exploring the McLaurin option, other guys, maybe even lesser priced wide receivers.
So one of the keys, and I think we both agree on this, for the offense to be the offensive line. It wasn't good. And I know you've written a couple of analysis articles. So let's talk about the interior offensive line. You've got the guards, Teller, Bitonio, both getting up there, and you could throw Posick in there too. Both are getting up there in age. How good can they be at this point of their careers?
Well, as you mentioned, 4 of the 5 are in the last year of their contracts, so a year from now this could look very different on the offensive line. And I think a lot of it is how this season goes. I mean, if the season's another, disaster, you don't run the ball, you don't have any offense, then why would you be paying $15 million plus, on a lot of these offensive line? And as far as re-signing them, you have young guys that you drafted. Is Luke Whippler the answer at center? Is Zach Zinner the answer at guard? Is Tevin Jenkins, a young free agent you signed, the answer at guard? DeJuan Jones. And so I think a lot depends on how they do. If they play very well and this team really looks like they're on their way, they're still going to have to make some tough decisions, but it'd be easier to bring a Teller back or a Conklin back or even a Bitonio back if they feel like, okay, we're now on the verge of playoffs or we really have a chance going forward. So that's the one thing, how the season goes. But I do think that they're optimistic going back to a system they were very successful at. The caveat is you had Nick Chubb back there, and that's when, you were a top 5 rushing team in the NFL. Was that the line or was that Nick Chubb? So now you got 2 rookies, primarily Quinshon Judkins, and how quickly they come along and how this running game looks. The running game clicks, they get back in the wide zone, and are running the ball very well, I would think it would go a long way. And whether they wanted to bring, some of these guys back, or as the season goes south, then you start playing the younger guys to see if you have what you need, or if you're going to have to use your top draft picks next year. You have 2 of them, whether it be an offensive lineman or at least one of them, or what position. So I really think it's how the season goes. It's to be determined, but there's no reason they can't run the ball going back to a zone scheme that they're all brought in originally to do, and they were successful in the past.
So DeJuan Jones, I mean, if he can play left tackle, it's really big, one, for Andrew Berry's drafting cachet, if you will. But more importantly, that's a huge piece. If you're going to have a rookie quarterback, you better have some tackles that can protect them. If you're drafting a franchise quarterback, you don't have to be getting a franchise quarterback and 3 offensive linemen in the same draft.
Absolutely, and it would kind of then take some of the sting out of missing on Jed Wills. I mean, you picked the guy 10th overall. You expected him to maybe not be Joe Thomas, but to be your left tackle for 10 to 12 years. In fact, when they drafted him, I think he was just 21. And he just really never emerged. But DeJuan Jones in the 4th round would make up for that, and he's only 23. And so you'd have him potentially for the next 10 years. I think the biggest question with him is, can he stay healthy? He looks great. We saw him this spring. He's dropped weight. He's reshaped his body. But he has finished the last 2 years on injury reserve. So can he plug and play there at left tackle? If he stays on the field, I'm pretty confident that he can be the answer long term at one of the tackles. Maybe he's not as great at left tackle, and this year shows it out, and they put him back to right tackle to replace Conklin when he moves on. Or, as you said, if he is the answer and can stay on the field at left tackle, you got that solved. You might not have to take a left tackle in the 1st round next year with 1 of your 2 picks. And you can usually find right tackles a little further down the list than you do with left tackles. Usually they're 1st round type players. So I do think that would be a big plus for the Browns. And plus he's on his rookie contract. Plus he's young. If he can stay on the field and do the job at left tackle. We have such a small sample size. They just stuck him in for 3 games. He seemed to be pretty good, and then he breaks his leg. So I think they're optimistic by what they did. They didn't really bring in or draft somebody to challenge him. They brought in a 12-year veteran as kind of a insurance policy in Cornelius Lucas. So, we'll see what happens when they get things going. But I think Jones, they're high and optimistic he can be the answer.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Do you think that AFC North is still the toughest division in the NFL? There are 2 teams who could possibly start geriatric quarterbacks. The Bengals defense isn't what it was a few years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. The Ravens are the only team who is solid top to bottom minus a kicker. Meanwhile, the NFC North has 3 playoff caliber teams, and even the 2 Western divisions each have at least 3 teams who can contend for playoff berths. What is your opinion? Thanks for taking my call. I always enjoy the show.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, I Tend to agree. I don't think the AFC North is as strong as it was. Did a nice job detailing that. NFC North, the AFC, follow the quarterbacks is what I would say. Follow the quarterbacks. Those are usually the divisions that are loaded. And now you've got Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and we'll see what the Cowboys become out in the NFC West as well.
Yeah, as far as that's what buried the Browns last year. I mean, the quarterback play, obviously, but in those first 7 games, they played the NFC East and lost all 4 of them. And you could make a case, the Eagles and Commanders and even the Cowboys, pretty good division. But I do think the NFC North, who the Browns happen to play this year, right now on paper looks like the strongest. And the Browns have to play the 3 best teams in the first 6 games: Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. All of them last year won at least 10 games. I mean, you had I think 14 wins, 13 wins, or maybe even 15, 14, and 10 or 11. All 3 teams made the playoffs. And you have to play, again, that's what we talked about, those first 6 games as a gauntlet. Besides the Division 3 games, you play those 3. Your season could be buried in those first 6 games. And so the Browns are going to face the best, it seems, right off the bat, at least based on last year. So I do think that the AFC North isn't as strong, but I do think that at least you got the Ravens, who look like a solid team all the way around, and who knows what the wild card is. The Steelers defense. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to get them over the top? You got to say he's better than what they had in the last couple years. And, and then the Bengals, they could be in a shootout scoring 40, 50 points a game, even if their defense isn't as good as some of the others. So the Browns season really could be make or break in those first 6 games. I mean, it's always the 6 AFC North games, and you're playing 3 of them right off the bat, as well as the NFC North. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not as optimistic about a 10-win season, but anything can happen. Every year, it's a new year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Ravens are kind of the class of on paper when you look at them. The Ravens are the class of that division, and then we'll see what becomes of the Steelers, Bengals, and we'll see how well the Browns put it together. Take a look at this. Shedeur Sanders getting in some work at Coach Dion, his dad's house, ahead of training camp. So we continue to see Sanders kind of working on the footwork and getting things going. It's kind of interesting, Fred. So rookies report to training camp next Friday. It's already a week from Friday. What are you paying attention to relative to the rookie quarterbacks early in camp?
Well, I'm just looking to see what their rotation's going to be. We don't see anything until everybody gets there. I think the 23rd, the veterans are in. And when they start practicing, is the pecking order changed? I don't expect it to change. I figure that Pickett or Flacco will be first with reps, probably Pickett, and then Gabriel and Sanders. I don't think anything's really changed based on the off-season workouts this spring. I think what's going to be big for these guys, they're going to have about a week of practice training camp, and then they're going to go to Carolina and practice with the Panthers. And then the next week they're going to go to Philadelphia, the Super Bowl champion, and they're going to practice 2 days with them. Those are going to be very important, especially for the rookies in the preseason game against the Panthers and the Eagles. I expect Sanders and Gabriel will play the majority of those games. And we remember DTR in those preseason games thought how well he looked. He played a lot. So it's always hard to read into it because they're playing non-starters and so forth as well. But I'm going to look for the rotation and how much, Sanders gets in with the first team or in 11-on-11s. He didn't get much in the OTAs and the mini camps. Gabriel got a little bit more. We'll just see if the evaluation since mini camp has changed, that the coaches said, he's moved up a little bit and he's going to have, maybe equal shot, with in the practice time, because that's really, they don't have a lot of time to get ready. They have a game August 8th and they start practicing July 23rd. So you basically have a week and a half of practices and you're starting to play games. And even though it's not a regular season game, you got to get them ready to play in games. And so there's not enough reps for 4 different guys.
Yeah, and I would guess that Pickett and Flacco get the reps against the first team defense from the Panthers and the Eagles in those joint practices. They'll probably split those up. And the rookies, they're going to have to probably do it in the preseason game. If we take away quarterback from the equation, what else are you paying attention to that's important in training camp?
Well, I think there's some of the things we talked about earlier. I think the wide receiver got a lot of bodies, but I don't know if they have a lot of proven, talent. So the training camp's going to be important, to see what the Cedric Tillmans and the Jamari Thrash and David Bell and, and Deontay Johnson, Michael Woods, how they look at, as well as the undrafted guys they brought in. And then on the defensive tackle line, of course, you want to see if Mason Graham's going to be ready. And what about Michael Hall, coming off that surgery? Then you got DeJuan Jones, how's he going to look at left tackle? And then you got Carson Schlesinger, who you're counting on to try to fill the gap, losing JOK. And then you got safeties. They're handing the job, or hoping the job is, shouldn't say handing, is Ronnie Hickman takes it. But they got literally no play out of the safeties last year as far as safety. No interceptions. Juan Thornhill was billed as a ball hawk. In 2 years, he had no interceptions. Can Hickman do that? Or would DeMonte Casey or Rayshon Jenkins, the veterans they brought in, will they unseat Hickman? And will Grant Delpit step up? So there's a lot of positions that they have players, but are they ready? Will they be ready to step in? So it's always kind of, crazy at training camp. Things happen, injuries occur. But as I look right now, that's what I see all the way around. And how quick can Harold Fannin step up? And will he be more of a wide receiver to start because of the depth at wide receivers?
Well, we'll get the answers in a couple of weeks. Fred Greetham, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Have a great day.
You as well. Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Really good stuff from Fred. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Kenny Roda from News Talk 1480 WHBC. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. ESPN's national NFL analyst Jeremy Fowler talking about the Browns quarterback competition.
One of the biggest storylines of the league is, what are the Browns going to do at quarterback? They got Joe Flacco. I expect him to be well positioned in that hierarchy, that pecking order that they set up early in camp. But then you have the 2 rookies. I'm told Shedeur Sanders acquitted himself well in OTAs and minicamp. He was throwing with aggressiveness. He was testing the defense. But he was also going against, mostly third-team defenses, not a lot of pass rush, 7-man defense. He's got a long ways to go. So really, any conversation with the Browns quarterback future should involve 2026, where they have 2 first-round picks in a loaded quarterback draft. So they could be looking to the future here. But in the meantime, they got to figure out something.
Let's welcome in Kenny Roda from the Kenny and JT Show, News Talk 1480 WHBC. Kenny, we haven't seen Sanders or Gabriel in pads yet, so we'll hold off on them. Obviously, Pickett and Flacco, not great options. At least you've given yourself enough options to try to find competent quarterback play.
Yeah, you bring in two guys that are considered veterans, right? Joe Flacco, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl MVP, familiar with Kevin Stefanski's offense from a couple of years ago. Kenny Pickett, first-round pick, started games for the Steelers. He wins a Super Bowl as a backup last year with Philadelphia. So it's by far better than what you had going into last season. The question is, when you open up at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, then you go on the road at Baltimore, then I think it's Green Bay and Detroit, right? There's four teams that believe they are Super Bowl contenders. Which of the four quarterbacks do you play in those first four games? I've got to believe it's one of the two veterans. I'm with you. The rookies, those are a work in progress considering where they were drafted. So who beats out whom in training camp? Is it Flacco because of his experience with the offense, or is it Pickett? If you go by the pecking order, who did they acquire first? They acquired Pickett first, right? And then they went out and got Flacco. So I think it's a battle between those two, especially for the first four games.
Let me throw this out to you, too. And a lot of fans minimize Kenny Pickett's chance to win the job. Pickett doesn't turn the ball over. The big plays that Flacco gives you, they're not there. Flacco gives you a high risk, high reward. And Pickett takes care of the football, which they haven't done, being the Browns, the last 2 years. So, I mean, there's a give and a take there.
Yeah, there is. Pickett does throw some interceptions, though, okay? And, the hand size is a factor. Going back to when he was drafted, that was talked about a lot. And the Steelers drafted him far too high, gave up on him. Philadelphia gave up on him as well, right? So what's that tell you? So, yeah, you know what you're getting out of Flacco. Let's look at it this way. You know Flacco can throw for 300. He can throw for 3-4 touchdowns in a game, but he can also throw 2 pick sixes, as you saw in the playoffs. So I think it comes down to what are you willing to live with? How good is the rest of the team around the quarterback? And then decide who you want to start based on, I'm guessing, those scrimmages against, who is it? Carolina, I think they're scrimmaging, and another team.
Eagles. Yeah.
In the Eagles. They're scrimmaging those two teams. I think that will determine more who starts than what happens in preseason games.
So the rookies report a week from Friday already. And then the following week, it's the veterans. Other than the quarterbacks, what are you paying attention to? What do you want to see from this training camp?
Left tackle, first and foremost. DeJuan Jones, has he recovered from his injuries, his surgeries? Is he ready to go? Supposedly lost some weight over the offseason. More mature, you would hope. He has to be an average to above average left tackle for this team to have any chance. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback, right? He's got to protect the blind side of 3 out of the 4. If Gabriel's the quarterback, well, he's a lefty, so that turns it over to Conklin on the right side. So for me, I want to see what DeJuan Jones does at the left tackle spot. That's first and foremost. And then the skill position players at running back. Nick Chubb is gone. There's, a new stable, if you will, of running backs with Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins. I think it's going to be Judkins who's going to be the starter. I'm not saying this because you see all the Ohio State stuff behind me, right? And what he did for the Buckeyes as an Ohio State player. I think he's the best running back on the roster. Between the tackles, he's the go-to guy there. Sampson, I think, is more of the game breaker to the outside along with Ford. And then who's the other wide receiver not named Jerry Jeudy? Those are the things I'll be watching outside of the quarterback position.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I think this will be I think it'll be more tempo in this training camp. I think it'll be more physical. I think it needs to be based on 2 things: the soft tissue injuries you've had the last 2 years, and the really slow starts. You can have neither of those when you're coming off a 3-14 season.
And like we said, they open up with Cincy, Baltimore, Green Bay, and Detroit right out of the gate. There's a realistic chance they could be 0-4 going into that Minnesota game. Realistic chance, right? 2 home, 2 on the road, 4 playoff teams. So you're right. You would hope they get at least one. Start 1-3 would actually be a good start against those 4 teams with this roster, not knowing who the quarterback is. So we'll see what Kevin Stefanski. Hey, 2-time Coach of the Year, right? Let's see if he works his every other year seems to be a good year for Stefanski and the Browns. So we'll see if he can work his magic this year. But don't hold your breath.
All right, so I think I know the answer to this. What are your thoughts about this offense rebounding and being substantially? I mean, last year it wasn't an NFL offense. Let's be honest about it. What do you think about them going back to the future with what they did a few years ago? The line's a little older. The running backs are a lot younger. Can this offense rebound and be approaching middle of the road?
Can't be any worse, can it? I mean, look at what happened last year. Awful, horrible. It rivals how bad, and we're going to get to them, the Guardians' offense is right now. I'm not sure whose offense is worse. At least you have Jose Ramirez there. Who's the go-to guy on offense for the Browns? Well, I guess it's Jerry Jeudy. Maybe Harold Fannin, the rookie tight end from Camp McKinley High School in Bowling Green. He can add something as that pass-catching tight end for whoever is at quarterback. So I've got to believe it's going to be better than last year. How much? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, and you're relying on guys that haven't done it at the NFL level. DeJuan Jones at left tackle, Junkins and Sampson in the running back room, Fannin, the tight end, and
right.
Cedric Tillman hasn't done it except for 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, it's a work in progress with a lot of it's a fluid situation, a lot of moving parts. What you see in game 1 isn't necessarily what you'll see in game 9 and game 17. So I think we're going to be seeing some, a lot of changes, a lot of movement all over the place. And we'll see by the end of the season which guys emerge as the go-to guys.
So let's talk a little bit about the defense. You still have Myles Garrett. You still have Denzel Ward. You've brought in some guys that fit what Jim Schwartz wants to do at defensive tackle. Mason Graham, Malik Collins, heck, even Michael Hall Jr. Schwartz has always had a defensive tackle that creates havoc in the middle. Browns haven't had that. I mean, Dalvin Tomlinson was just kind of a space eater, did a nice job, but are you buying a bounce back where this defense can be pretty good?
Well, it's going to depend on the defensive line, right? Mason Graham, 5th overall pick. Hall on the interior. Myles Garrett, signed, sealed, delivered. Does he step up in his leadership role this year and have an impactful season not only on the field, but in the locker room with the young guys? Again, much like the offense, other than that defensive line and Denzel, question marks everywhere else. So I want to see, may the Schwartz be with you, right? Let's see what he can do like Stefanski has to do with the offense.
What part of this team do you think is the strength? Is it the defensive line? And does it have to be elite for them to be competitive?
Yes, I think it is the defensive line. When you use the 5th overall pick on a guy, you expect to plug and play and get an impact out of Graham. Hall coming back off a up and down year from last year, but you have arguably the best defensive player in the NFL in Myles Garrett. Can he take his game to that next level, that Hall of Fame level where he really impacts it consistently? That's the one knock I have on Myles Garrett. It's not every game, and to be a Hall of Famer, to be a defensive player of the year multiple times, he needs to be more consistent. So can he do that? We're going to find out.
Kenny Roda and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Guardians and Cavaliers. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We turn our attention to the Guardians. Snapped a 10-game losing streak yesterday with a win over the Astros. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, love the show. Read a thing that said the Indians were possibly going to move Clase for prospects. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of because we've got plenty of prospects of our own that they don't ever play. So why would you get rid of your best closing pitcher in baseball for prospects? If they move him, they better bring some guys to the big leagues right now, not prospects who will never see the light of day. We traded for Manzardo, and they bench him, and he's probably the best hitter on our team if they give him a chance to play. Just want to hear your thoughts. Go Guards.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Kenny, if in fact you do trade Clase A, I think you need two guys that you can play in this lineup offensively. And putting in this lineup offensively, we'll get to in a minute. But for me to trade Clase A, I got to get two guys that I can play at the major league level and that are better than what we have, which we don't have much. We'll get into that in a minute.
I'm all for trading Emmanuel Clase for a number of reasons. If you go back and you track the usage of Guardians closers, right? They tend to wear those guys out. Go back to Andrew Miller. He wore out. And what a great pickup that was at the trade deadline. They get all the way to the 2016 World Series, but he wears out. Cody Allen, they wore him out. So for me, they're starting to get to that point with Emmanuel Clase. So for me, I'm willing to trade him now while the value is still high. And he's got a very reasonable contract for whoever might trade for him. And if I'm the Guardians, though, I don't just give him away. I'm with you. I need impactful players that can help me right now, whether that's a pitcher and a position player, two position players, but I also need some prospects in return. I think he's the most attractive tradable asset that the Guardians have, and they should take every phone call about him and make the best deal possible moving forward, because I think the team we're seeing this year is really who the Guardians are. I think last year they caught lightning in a bottle. It's not the norm. They got to the ALCS and they subtracted from it, and now you're seeing who they really are. So they need to replenish the farm system as well as the major league roster.
There's a couple of things. So we'll get to the hitters in a minute. Here's my read of it. The Guardians knew that they still had some questions in their starting rotation. You know, Bybee had done it for a little bit. Williams had done it for a little bit. The way you win playoffs is by having good pitching. Your pitchers, and we'll get into this, is a whole flip side. So I think they had some questions. Were their starting pitchers going to take a step? But man, they have nothing in the system relative to offense. There are 17 guys have had 10 at-bats or more for the Guardians. 9 of them, 9 of them, over half of them are hitting under 180.
Complete joke. It's an embarrassment to the organization. They can develop pitching, they can draft pitching, they can acquire pitching. They have no luck whatsoever, maybe no skill, whoever is evaluating the players in assessing good hitting prospects. And then there are 2 that we're waiting to see, right? CJ Kafis, Chase DeLauder. Now, are they going to save the season? No, but they can't be any worse than John Kenzie Noel, Jonathan Rodriguez, Nolan Jones. That's a disaster for the second time. They brought him back and he still can't hit, right? So it's time to here's where they are as far as position players, in my opinion. They have a third baseman, Jose Ramirez. They have a left fielder in Stephen Kwan, and they're the 2 all-stars. Everybody else stinks. The catching position is an embarrassment in Major League Baseball. Center field, I don't know who that is. Right field, they haven't had one since Sin Shu Chu. Second base, shortstop, they haven't replaced Frankie Lindor still. Second base, they had at least a decent defensive second baseman in Jimenez, who drove in 60 runs last year. I'd kill to have a guy drive in 60 runs in this offense this year. So that's a hole. First base, the aging Carlos Santana. I'd trade him as well before the trading deadline and get at least a prospect for him. And just let Kyle Manzardo play, because you traded for him hoping he'd be your future first baseman. He's hitting home runs. The average is not where you want it to be, but let him play. Hey, you're letting Nolan Jones play every day almost. Why not let Kyle Manzardo play? Enough with the platoon stuff in right field and first base. Let these young guys play. Call up DeLauder, put him in right field, see what he can do.
See, I think what they're telling you by not calling up DeLauder and Kafis, there's still holes, major holes that will get exposed. If one of them or
but are they any worse, David, than what's swinging the bat? John Kenzie Noel deserves to be up here over Chase DeLauder.
Well, here's the
I'm
problem.
not buying that at all.
You want to know the problem? Kenny, he's hitting 220 against AAA pitching. So he's got a hole in his swing. And if minor leaguers are finding the hole in his swing, major leaguers are going to drive a truck through it. The bigger problem is whatever you're doing to identify hitters, stop it. Go 180 degrees because you can't do it.
I agree. I agree with you there. They need to revamp how they're evaluating hitters. I don't know if it's sabermetrics, analytics. I go by the eye test, right? Now, what I've seen when hey, DeLauder might be Russell Branyan for all we know, right? When Russell would hit it, he'd hit it a ton, right? It would go into orbit, but he struck out 3 out of 4 at bats, 4 out of 5 at bats. But when he made contact, he crushed the ball. So I at least want to show me to appease me that DeLauder does have holes in his swing and that he belongs down at AAA. But again, can't be any worse than Rodriguez, $146, Noel, $146. I mean, come on, those guys they've given them their chance. Now bring up DeLauder or Kefas, or both for that matter. Put one in center, put one in right, and show us that you know what you were talking about by letting them play. And if they fail, you can say, see, we told you they weren't ready, but at least you gave them a chance. Maybe one of them gets hot. You never know. I go back to it can't be any worse than what we're seeing currently at the major league level.
Yeah, and I don't argue. What I would say is if they truly think this guy is going to be a part of the future, don't bring him up if it's, I mean, right now he's got a looping swing, and my guess is he cannot hit something inside under his hands. His swing is kind of long, and the problem is you see the home runs that he's hitting. AAA pitchers make mistakes a lot more often. They're kind of hurting themselves by showing all these home runs. They're not showing the 220 that he's hitting against right-handed pitchers at the AAA level.
But didn't he have a 16 or 17 game hitting streak recently? Didn't he have an on-base streak?
All right.
They just promoted the heck out of Jose Ramirez's major league on-base streak, right? Well, DeLauder down at the minor league level reached 30 games in a row, getting on base with a walk or a hit at least. So, like I said, can't be any worse.
He's played 4 games in a row. Before last night, he was 3 of 16. So they're trying to build them up, and those are the things they're looking at. And again, I'm not defending them. It's a mess. You've got to find a way to get offense because you're wasting young starting pitching that's getting pretty good. They're young,
but they're the best they have at the minor league system, right?
Yeah,
that's the sad part.
That's where I'm going. Best, so that's where I'm going.
I have to at least call them up until I get replacements, and that's why you trade Clase. That's why you trade Santana and whoever else. Shane Bieber. Here's the thing. I don't know if this bothers you, David, but Matthew Boyd. Have you seen what Matthew Boyd has done this year after helping the Guardians get to the ALCS last year? Yep. Right? He beat us the other day. This guy is making $12.5, $13 million over 2 years. $29 million over 2 years. So 14.5 a year. They decided, you know what? We'll give that money to Shane Bieber, who has not pitched a game for them yet this season. And in the meantime, Matthew Boyd is helping the Cubs to a first-place record and has postseason experience, but they didn't want to spend the money on him. They decided to give it to Bieber, who may or may not pitch for them this year. Again, that's a front office disaster, a horrible decision by the front office.
Yep. And again, they're hoping to keep Bieber. Bieber can opt out. So if he pitches well, he can go Matthew Boyd them.
And you could have kept Boyd for at least 2 years. With Bieber, you don't know if he's going to be back to where he once was. And if he is, he's not taking your salaries that you're going to be offering, right? He's going to leave anyway. So, again, not a good offseason for Paul Dolan, who probably, gave some marching orders as to how much money they could spend. You get rid of Josh Naylor, terrible move. 30 home runs, 100 RBIs last year. You get rid of Jimenez. Platinum gloves, 60 RBIs last year. You don't bring back Matthew Boyd. They had a team that was within 3 games of getting to the World Series last year, and they subtracted from it. They did not add to it, and that's on the ownership and the front office. End of story.
Yep. You know what else? Baseball's broken, and the national people that don't tell you it is, and Manfred that's worried about pitch clocks and that garbage, you should not be able to put together a roster that is 4 times that you spend 4 times as much money as somebody else that's playing in your league. You just shouldn't. And that's what's going on between the Dodgers and the Red Sox and all. You need some crazed small market owner that just puts an end to that.
Well, the owners are all making money, right? And when you vote on this, you need to stand up for yourself then. What's more important? Competitive balance, they use that term with draft picks and all that, but parity, is that more important to you where you have a chance? Well, you do, because we have 3 wild cards. That's that carrot they're dangling out in front of the smaller market teams, right? But what are your chances of winning the World Series? You might make the playoffs, but do you have a realistic chance of winning the World Series? The answer is no. So those smaller to mid-market teams need to step up and say, okay, enough is enough. We need to put in a salary cap. You need to put a floor and a ceiling, and all the teams have to spend somewhere in between that. To me, it's an easy solution to make the game better, but it's not going to make the owners happy, because the money then that they're earning could be taken away from them if they elect to do that.
Well, it's coming down the road, because as you see the TV rights deal for local teams that are going away, more and more of them are going away. That's the biggest disparity in baseball. The Dodgers make $1 billion from theirs, and the Guardians and the Padres are in the 40 million range. So that's going away. So that is something to keep an eye on. Kenny Roda, we could go on and on. Appreciate the time. As always, great stuff. Appreciate it, Kenny.
Always enjoy talking with you, David. Thanks for having me.
All right, Kenny Roda, make sure you check him out. Kenny and JT Show, News Talk, 1480 WHBC. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.